truth tells me a different story. I will choose to listen and believe the voice of truth.
So welcome to the advanced healthcare class for September. And you guys are probably thrown off by the title, so I'm going to talk about that for a second. Then I'm going to make a couple of announcements, and then we're going to dive into the exciting information, okay? So, the title, what happens with my birth experience? Like, what are the top 3 ways that I could be impacted neurologically because of the way I was born? That's the title. You don't brush your teeth, what happens? I mean, come on, guys. You use dental analogies all the time, Doc. Yeah, I do, because it's that pertinent. And sometimes you guys are more serious about your teeth than you are your nervous system. I don't understand it. Oh, Doc, I've got this important movie I got to watch tonight. I can't come in for my adjustment. Sorry, Doc. I'm really sorry. Don't say sorry to me. You just gave up on yourself. And you know I'll be real with you, too. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you. When you're off track, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you in a loving way, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Because, one, you hired me to do a job. That's the first thing. But the most important thing to me, my priorities are your health, your family's health, and my integrity as a superior healthcare provider. And I won't sacrifice or budge on any one of those. I've had to fire patients before. Say, hey, you know what? Here's your money back. This isn't working for me. Because I'm not going to put my reputation on the line for somebody that doesn't want to get better and wants to fail. Not willing to do it. Because you're going to go tell 5 other people, oh, it didn't work. Well, did you do what you were supposed to do? No, I didn't do what I was supposed to do. Did you show up and do your stuff? No. Did you come to any of your classes? No. He told me all this stuff to do, but I just didn't do it. You think they're going to say that? Probably not. But that's the reality of the situation. That's why there's always the 80-20 rule, right? I'm not trying to be negative, guys, but I think it's important for all of us to hear this. You get that? It's important for us to hear this. Because then when you're sitting there and you're waiting for your adjustment, and somebody says something like that, you can encourage them. Hey, are you doing your stuff? No, I'm having a rough time at work. I get that. Stuff happens. Stuff happens. A traction unit is very small. It does fit in your luggage. There are doors everywhere unless you live in a teepee or something. If you go to a Native American reservation, that would be the exception of why you can't bring your traction unit. Or on a safari hike where you're going to live off zebras and well, actually they're endangered, so you don't want to live off of a zebra. But you get what I'm saying. If you're in the Amazon rainforest and you're with the monkeys and stuff, I wouldn't ask you to tie your traction unit to a tree. Okay? That would be the exception to that. So I was sharing this with Warren. And over time, 1 year passed, 2 years passed, 3 years passed. He's off the medication. He's coming in, he's referring people, referring 2, 3, 4 people. Showing up, unless he's got like something with his church, he's at these classes. This is a guy that for the last maybe 4 days had body aches. Did he go see the medical doctor? I'm talking about level 7 out of 10 body aches. You guys think he went to the MD? No, he came here. Does everybody do that? 1 out of 5 probably does. Not a real good batting percentage there. 1 divided by 5. For my math people, you guys can figure out what that is. But it's not real good. What is it? Okay, there you go. 20%. Not real good, right? Say I was never a math guy. So 1 out of 5 and are coming in, and he's got body aches, and what does he want? He's like, Doc, I think I need to come in every day. Am I saying, oh, well, your plan only says 52 visits? No, I'm like, get your butt in here, dude. I'm so proud of you. Because you get the principle. You're coming here. You're coming here to get your brainstem rocked. And so for 3 days, we checked him. A couple of days after, things were getting better, but they weren't exactly where I wanted them to be. So what I do, I added a little nutrition in it. Why? Because nutrition's going to speed it up. Because I don't want him to ever go to a medication. I used to not work with standard process. Okay, Chris Lippe, my functional nutritionist, he's 55 years old. Okay, sorry, Chris, actually I think you're 51. And he's one of my best friends. But I used to not sell their products. And my profit margin is minimal on that. So I'm not doing it for business. But what I noticed is when we got the nervous system right, and then we put some nutrition on it, secondarily, after 2 or 3 months of getting that nervous system primed, the nervous system, of course, was able to assimilate those nutrients, and the person got better quicker, and my percentages of people going to the medical doctor, I reduced that drastically. But what's the other thing I noticed? That they had to come to the talk in order to keep the principle fresh in their mind, because when they have a health setback, what do they go into? False evidence appearing real. And I say they, but let's say you, us, everybody in this room. What do we go into, guys? Fear. And that's why, as your primary care physician, I want you to call the office. Sheila, Anna, somebody, Dr. Tanya will get the phone, leave a message, text us, and say, you know what? I feel something coming on. I'm spewing out of both ends. Oh, doc, I hate hearing, doc, I'm worried about everybody else getting sick. We don't believe in the germ theory here. We don't. We don't believe in the germ theory here. You know why people get sick or under the weather? It's because their immune system is run down. How does their immune system get run down? Because they're subluxated. Chemical, physical, emotional stress. Chemically, what do they have? Too much caffeine, not enough water, not enough sleep, too much stimulation from these nasty phones, right? That most of the time I want to throw mine in the river, right? What else do we have? Well, we have the bat poop that you ladies put on your eyebrows and stuff, and the eyeliner, right? You got that stuff. You got the Glade Plug-It-In, that's a neurotoxin. And now Vaughn's and everybody, they're going to start talking about how much you got to have the flu shot or you're going to die. Maybe in a third world country, not the United States of America, look at the percentages and facts on that. People are dying of flu. It's like 1 in a million. 1 in a million. You know what the flu means? Your nervous system wasn't working, you let it get out of hand, and you're out of balance. So if health is a bucket, your bucket's overflowing. That's what the flu is, folks. It's exactly what the flu is. So that's why I know that it's important for us to get to these talks. There's a lot of good stuff happening in the practice. I'm going to be we did an intro video with this beautiful team of video people here. We did an intro video and a 1-minute video. Because a lot of people were coming in the practice and they're like, Doc, hey, I got this family member. I want them to hear what you do. So there's a 3 to 5 minute video coming out in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Probably take another week to get put on my website. And then there's going to be a 1-minute video. There's going to be a button on the front page. It's going to have some message about saving a life or enrolling somebody in a new possibility or something that you guys have heard me say before about your family and how we're going to transform this community. And you click that button, and then 2 options pop up. The 1-minute video or the 3 to 5 minute video. And then there's a link, and even I told her, a 90-year-old woman in a dark cave that can't see, that's how simple I want it to be to get on Facebook or send an email. That's what I told her. I gave her some outlandish, you know how I am sometimes, right? I said, that's the way I want it to be related to when they click, I want them to get those 2 choices, and then it's that easy to send it on Facebook or send it through text message. So that's one of the great things happening in the practice. But going back to Warren Putman for a second. So Warren told me this week, after getting adjusted all week and a little bit of nutrition, guess what he said? He said on the table today, he said, Doc, you know what? I feel better than I felt in weeks, the last 3 days. I know it's because my brain stem's in the right place. It's communicating with the rest of my body. And I know that my immune system is working. Because I had a fever. Instead of my fever going up, it went down. It went down from like 102 to 95. It's never done that. Usually when it starts to go up and I get the flu, it keeps going up. It didn't do that this time, Doc. And he's educating and telling me that. If he's sitting at home with Fuzz Kitty, eating popcorn and getting distracted, is he going to say that? Is he going to be enrolled in a new possibility? Is he even going to come here? So see how important this is? And then really, really getting those videos out to people and sharing it with them. And then maybe sharing it, you see a patient that's discouraged. And you share a video testimonial with them. When you go to the media section of the website, okay, there's video testimonials now on every subject. And my website person, she's going to change it to the titles. So there's going to be a title on cancer. There's going to be a title on rheumatoid arthritis, all that. And there are people that had that condition, and they're either 100% better or they're 50, 60% better than they were when they walked in the door. And those are all on there. And you guys are going to be next. But it only comes from being compliant. Okay? So, related to our topic of discussion tonight, how many of you guys think that a breech birth, does everybody know what a breech birth is? Okay, good. Basically, you're sideways. Okay? Basically, instead of, a baby is supposed to be head down. Baby's supposed to be head down. And the baby's head is supposed, the back of the head is supposed, if you think about your pelvis, Here's your hips right here. Okay, you got that thing I always refer to? You guys like think it's some magical area. You like don't think it really exists. Your sacrum points down, and the baby's supposed to come out like this, and the face is supposed to be down so that the neck can curve around the pelvis. That's a normal position, which basically the head's down like this, almost like you're going scuba diving. That's the way baby's supposed to come out on a vaginal birth. What happens, though, is all these different positions start to happen. As mama is dealing with emotional, physical, chemical stresses, as mama's living in this world, I mean, think about those of you that have kids or have had friends that were pregnant and went into labor and went through that whole process and now have children. You know, you either watched it or experienced it yourself. How many people think birth is a traumatic experience for the mother and the baby? And I said that to a woman one night. She was kind of like very, very spiritual and very, crystal and, essential oils. And I love that stuff, by the way. But she was like I call those people spiritual bunny rabbits. She could have probably taken off in a spaceship, right? And so she thought I was like trying to hate on, use an urban term for a second. She thought I was trying to hate on like birth, like saying it's just this nasty, horrible thing. No, it's a normal thing for the body. Like I was kind of like, I thought it was weird that she would think that about a holistic doctor that has a child already and another child on the way, and is probably the most granola person known to man. I mean, we had like a tub for little Cordie, and Fuzz Kitty I thought he was going to jump in and commit suicide in the tub and drown or something. He's circulating around the tub, and we had little affirmation posters up, people praying around us, essential oil diffusers. I mean, it's like a granola Lifetime movie. Was the birth experience before my wife started screaming. No, she didn't scream, but I was saying she was in labor for 33 hours. Oh. Because he rotated at the last minute. So we did everything right, and he still rotated. Little Cordie, day before, rotates into what we call a sunny side up position. Instead of being with the face down, the face is up. And now you got the forehead ramming into the pelvic bone and the pubic symphysis. That's not the way innate your body, God within you, designed your body to be. Didn't design it that way. So there's an issue with the tissue there. And so that's what I mean. Even if a baby is born vaginally and at home, that's a traumatic experience. Even if it's 4 hours, the body is made to do that. A woman's body is made to do that. And I think she was, this woman I'm referring to, I think she was acting as if I was trying to say it wasn't natural or it was bad or anything like that. I'm not saying that. But let's just get it out there. The elephant in the room is that it's a traumatic process. And within that process, there's trauma. Even if the baby's born at home. After 33 hours of pushing, you think little Cordie's head was going to be deformed? Yeah, it came out looking like cone heads. Anybody see the movie? Yeah, looked like a cone head. And it's all gooey and bloody and blue and all that stuff, right? We hid it in the pictures. We're like, we're hiding this right now.
But it went back down soon, right?
Well, it went back down soon, but why did it go back down, and why does he have like a perfectly shaped head now?
Because of his father.
Well, not just because of his father, actually. I wish I could say that, but it's the intelligence in his brain and his body. No, it's not me. It's never me. Even your healing's not me. Thanks for that street cred right there. But no, it's not me. It's your body. It's your body working. And several other people that worked with the cranial sutures in his head. Because did you guys know that the sutures in the brain and around the skull, they don't fuse until 25? They don't fuse till 25. Why is that? Because in order to form and get out of that vaginal area and that cervix area, right? The skull has to be malleable, is the word I was trying to pronounce and say. The skull has to be able to be malleable and get out of that area. And so that's the way innate designed it, so that it would be malleable, be able to move around and slide into different positions where it needs to go. But within that, if it's going the wrong way, meaning if the baby is turned or flipped, you can see how you've got a compressive force, and Nate's trying to get that baby out. That baby can't go out. Mom's under duress. Baby's under duress. And now we just need to cut the stomach open and take out the organs and pull the baby out. That's the answer. No, I'm joking. I'm being sarcastic, by the way. But we have the highest C-section rate in the world, 33%. So is that intense for mom and baby? Absolutely. But what do we do to little Cordie? The cord was pulsating. Okay, cord was pulsating. I took middle finger, put it right on the brainstem, and he started screaming, and I mean, it was the worst thing. I almost killed him. I'm joking. Okay? I put my thumb, or I put my middle finger right here, and he just kind of softly just like submitted. He just softly let go. Because they innately know it's not in the right place. How many people think from an energetic perspective that babies and children are very clear? Oh yeah. Like big time, right? And then you've got women, and somewhere down on the bottom is the men, right? Let's be real, guys. Let's be honest here, okay? We are, right? We are. We're on the bottom there related to that. I don't know what she meant by that. I don't understand what she meant. Well, she didn't like when you said that, or you didn't actually listen to her, right? I've discovered all this later. And how wise the guy that wrote Men Are From Venus, Women Are From Mars, that guy was a brilliant man. He figured that out. I mean, brilliant guy. And watch, he probably has 4 ex-wives or something. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. But so this stuff happens where, what do we have to do? We put that brainstem in the right place. Then we started working with the sutures. We got other people, craniosacral therapists in there, all that stuff. But related to what could have happened, if I would have left that trauma there, what's the impact of that 10, 20, 30, 40, 60 years down the road? Do we know what the impact of that is? What if he was born in the hospital? Do they wait for the baby to come out? There's 90 to 120 pounds of pressure when they're pulling and twisting. And did you know there are certain fluids that come out of the vagina in particular that coat the head and the skull of the baby and that create antibodies, which is part of your immune system within the baby? So we've got the highest C-section rate. There are some women in New York and other places where they're just like, I don't want to have the baby. It could be due on Monday. That's what God would say. But I want it done on Tuesday instead. Just cut me open. And then, seriously, guys, they have a name for it. I can't remember the name off topic, but there's some name, like cultural, societal name for doing that. And what's that baby missing out on? A new possibility. So you got the stress from that. And with the C-section, is there any connection between mom and baby right after baby is born? Babies used to being close to mom, right? Connected. And I was a C-section. So moms, if you had a C-section, I don't want you to go into condemnation and blame yourself. If you were C-section or had a C-section, I don't want you to get tight and your adrenal glands to be shot and go home and create a voodoo doll of me. Okay? That's not what we're trying to do. But what I am trying to do is enroll you in a new possibility about what we need to do in the future, what we need to do preventatively, and we'll talk about that in a second, for our own health, but what we also need to enroll our friends and family members in and their kids in. See, that's the importance of the classes. Getting that information out after you own it and learn it and continue to own it and learn it. Because I do personal growth all the time. Do I have it figured out? No. No. This is a messed up thing right here sitting in front of you. And I'm working on it all the time. And I know that. I'm aware of that. So what we constantly have to do is be looking at and assessing what's working and what's not related to our health and what happened to get us to where we are. And birth is such a huge part of that process. A huge part of that process. So we've got that fluid that's supposed to be there. There's a lack of connection between mom and baby because on a C-section, mom's or baby's taken away to a separate room. So there's no skin-to-skin contact. And you know when there's skin-to-skin contact between mom and baby, pheromones are released, and the body starts to release a chemical called oxytocin, which you hear me talk about all the time. And when that oxytocin is there, baby's cortisol levels decrease, mom's cortisol levels decrease, and what's baby more or less likely to do if there is or isn't oxytocin? If I'm stressed out, am I going to breastfeed? So if we don't have skin-to-skin contact and you're taken off, that's where there's a huge correlation between C-section births and an inability to breastfeed. Are there exceptions to that rule? Am I saying absolutely it's always that way? No. But we see that. The research shows that. Because I don't know everything, so every talk I have to do research. I have to look at stuff, guys. I do. Because I want to come out here with some fresh content. So we've got to be skin to skin. That fluid has to be there on that head to create those antibodies. And then they're not waiting for the baby to come out, so there's 90 to 120 pounds of pressure when they're pulling and yanking on this brainstem. 60 to 88 on a C-section. So think about the C-section baby. They didn't get the fluid around the head. They didn't get the skin-to-skin contact. They got pulled and yanked and twisted on. How's their immune system at that point? Yeah. And so what do we artificially do? And what do we do in utero? Why, like how do we get to the point where there is a C-section? Because you get in the hospital system, and what do? And I'll answer your question in just a second. You get in the hospital system, and after maybe 3 or 4 hours, what's the term that they use for the birth? Failure to what? Progress. So what do? They give you a chemical, yes, which is a artificial oxytocin. And what does it do? It's such an excessive amount, it shuts off the oxytocin, artificially produces this chemical this chemical manufactured synthetic is the term I'm looking for, oxytocin. And the cervix and the vagina get really, really tight, and they start contracting harder than innate. See, innate knows how much to contract that cervix, contract that uterus, what time to do it, what time to make it do this and make it not do that. But when you bring a chemical in there, that's something from the outside. Does the body, when I bring a chemical from the outside to do what the body's innately supposed to do, is the body able to produce that chemical? Or does this outside source, this outside synthetic start doing for the body what the body's supposed to do? The outside source starts taking over, right? So the body totally quits producing oxytocin. So now the woman becomes reliant on the artificial Pitocin. And where does that Pitocin go? It stays in a reservoir in the body called mama. And it just stays there. And nobody else is impacted by it because it's in this mama reservoir. Does everybody know I'm being sarcastic right now? Yeah. Where does it go? It goes into the baby. That Pitocin that you took, that you think is only affecting you, and they're telling, it's no big deal. We tested it on rats for 4 months. It's cool. It's had tons of recalls with GlaxoSmithKline and Merck. But you know, we made $200 billion off of it. We just wrote a check for $100 million. We were good. It was the cost of doing business. But it's good. It's cool. The rats have the same physiology as your baby and you. You're covered. And then they give you an epidural. And so once those contractions increase and you can't control them, you may start pushing too hard. So once you inflame the cervix, okay, and women tell me if I'm wrong, okay, because I know I'm not, but tell me if I am. When that cervix inflames and you're in the middle of childbirth, you're screwed. How many people know that? When that happens, when you get it inflamed to the point where it's uncontrollable, like when you over push at the wrong time, which is what happens with Pitocin, you're C-section. Because at some point that baby is going to get into what they call trouble or a danger spot, or it's going to be failure to progress again. And then they give you an epidural and you can't even feel that area. They're having to tell you. And if you don't have somebody that's good at looking at the cervix and measuring things and telling you at the right time, that area is going to get inflamed, and then they're cutting you open anyways. So you have this false oxytocin. There's no connection between mom. You're in a separate place. You didn't get the fluid that you needed around your skull and your head to create those antibodies. And now you're not breastfeeding. So now what are the effects that we see? Well, we see ear infections. We see attention deficit disorders. We see autism. We see autoimmune conditions later in life. We see upper cervical and upper respiratory problems, asthma, all sorts of stuff. I could go on and on and on. But there's some that'll pass through even all that. That's how brilliant the body is. And they'll grow up, and it wasn't your fault. You put all these chemicals in them because you were feared into it. After all this happened, then they're telling you this Hep B shot. You know how you get Hep B? IV drug users and sexual intercourse. Anybody know any baby that's 1 year old that's thinking about sexual intercourse? I want to meet the baby. Okay, it's going to be a famous kid. It's going to be a famous kid. And are any of them shooting up with heroin? Probably not. I'm just saying, right? I kind of think that's not happening. So then they give them the Hep B shot, and they get all this mercury and aluminum. They fear them into all these other drugs, medications, and shots. So now we have this whole slew of trauma that was created. And where did it start? It started because mom wasn't connected to her nervous system. There was no opportunity to balance that pelvis, create more room, and give baby the opportunity to get in the best position possible. See, that's what we do with Webster's technique. That's what we do with kids. We make sure as much as possible. It's 100%, doc. Nothing's 100%. Because how many people can have a perfect curve and step out of here instantly after they get that perfect curve and be subluxated? How many people? Everybody in this room. All it takes is turn on the news for a second, somebody flips you off on I-5 or on social media, they tell you to F yourself. Somebody told me to F myself the other day on social media, right? It's like amazing how it happens. Just because I shared something, they didn't like it, right? And that subluxates you. And so when you're releasing that cortisol, if you're pregnant, that goes into baby. Can that turn baby? Absolutely that can turn baby. So we got to be looking at that, analyzing that, and finding where those subluxations are to open up innate so life can express. So what do we do when our brainstem's crushed? What do we do if we're that baby? And some of you, maybe you came out with forceps. Maybe it was vacuum extraction. Maybe you weren't born in a hospital. Like, you don't know the state of mom when you were born. Mom's like, oh, it was beautiful. It was the most beautiful. I love you, little teddy bear cub, sugar muffin. Right? Mom's always going to tell you that, right? And I can tell you, it was beautiful, but man, there was a lot of profanity in our area of the room. And I have the most Christian lady. And I'm a Christian, but I'm a former Marine too. And when it gets hairy, sometimes things happen. Okay? I'm a human being. Never said I was perfect, guys. Okay? And so, Sue Howard and Wayman Howard are some of our dear friends. Okay? I'll give you a little insight to Dr. Tanya and I. And Dr. Tanya is a New Yorker. She's a soft flower on the outside, but man, she's got some vinegar to her. Right? She's got her to handle me, right? So, at our birth experience, Sue Howard, Wayman Howard, they run a program called Love Works. It's in 14 different languages around the world. And Sue's like praying and being all gentle and, Father, you're covering. I mean, she is such a sentient being, man. We all have friends like that, right? Like, she is just anointed. Like, God gave her this gift of just like, you get around her and you just feel like you're around an angel. I mean, she's just that magnificent. And her husband's right there. I can go to her husband and talk to him for 30 minutes. We can have coffee. I feel like I went to a day spa. Like, literally, I do. I'm just totally, it's like NET. It's like I just got NET. That's the way I feel when I'm with Wayman. So she's praying and all this, and there's all sorts of stuff flying in the room. So there were some intense moments. And then people didn't do on our birth team, didn't necessarily do exactly what they said they were going to do, how they said they were going to do it. And so Dr. Williams I had to get a little Marine Corps, because it was like the rubber was meeting the road, and Mama Bear needed me. And I was going to be there for my wife no matter what. Nobody was changing that scenario or that situation. So I had to take charge. That creates some stress, doesn't it? Even that, us having to deal with that, me reacting the best way I knew how, created stress for my wife. She released more cortisol into little Cordie because of that, because of what happened. Is it going to be perfect? No, it's never going to be perfect. But what can we do to prevent it? We can get checked as long as possible, as much as possible for the rest of our life. We can get our kids checked, our family checked. When there are neurological disorders and things happening, what do we want to look at? Well, we want to evaluate our emotional stress all the time. And here's something I was saying to a patient this week. What works for me and what works for the person to your left or right, that may not necessarily be what works for you. You may have to do more to stay in state emotionally. The adjustment is the best NET that you can do, because it's going to activate your dopamine and serotonin and your oxytocin. Those are the love chemicals and the happy chemicals. Now, everything you do outside of here, when you do those 49 breaths consistently, twice a day, not once a day. I did them once a day, and then I was going to work, and then I pet Fuzz Kitty, and then I went over here and made a shake, and then I did 10 more. It's 49 in a row, you goofball. That's why I say 49 in a row, and I'm so verbose. You guys ever notice I'm very verbose and I over-explain? I say it 10 times a different way, and then I repetitively say it every day. Why do I do that? Because one person is going to say, oh, you never told me that. And I want to know, so I don't feel like jumping out a window, that I told them that, right? Like, we do the same process. Everybody gets a traction unit, they get the 4 steps. Oh, I never got that sheet. Okay, so you're the one person in 7 years. That's like me, I forgot to wipe my butt today when I went to the bathroom. Yeah, it never happens, okay? Last time I checked anyways. That's never going to happen. We consistently do it that way, on purpose. So once we get that brainstem in the right place, let's look at our emotional stress. NET is a big one. Breathing's a big one. Journaling is a huge one that I haven't talked to some of you about. Oh, Doc, I hate journaling, man. I feel like, oh, there's just no way I have time for that. It's so exhausting. Oh, Doc, there's no way I can do it. My schedule is so busy. Like mine's not. How long does it take to journal? Am I saying you have to be Henry David Thoreau or Ralph Waldo Emerson? No, we're not saying that. What we're saying is just write down when you find yourself getting stressed, locate where that stress is. Oh, I'm noticing that stress is in my stomach right now. Well, what just happened? Well, I talked to my beautiful husband that I loved, and he kind of stressed me out a little bit. He did that thing that triggers me where he raises his voice, or he says something. He calls me something. Like when I get frustrated, I'll call Dr. Tanya at home. She hates that. Absolutely hates that. I'm like, hey, Doc, relax. And she hates that when we're like out at dinner if I get irritated. So I know that triggers her, but of course I have to do it. Of course I have to do it. And so that triggers her, and that creates a subluxation within her. And so she could journal, well, what did I feel when my husband said Doc to me? Okay, well, I felt a tightness in my stomach. It made me feel invalidated. It made me feel frustrated. It made me feel less than. And those feelings and where they're located are really important for 2 reasons. The first reason is when you identify that feeling and the place where that irritation happened at, or that ache in your stomach, or that gastric reflux, or that bloating, or whatever you started to have in your body, when you write it down and you write down the emotion tied to it, one, it creates awareness. And death and life are in the power of the tongue. And when that awareness is there, the next time it happens, you're more likely to breathe in to that frustration and allow that thing to happen. You're more accepting of it. You're more accepting of it. You can have that grace, just like your Creator had for you, to say, okay, I'm going to let that go. I don't need to say that, or I don't need to do that, or that doesn't serve me and that doesn't serve the greater good. But the other thing you can do is we can NET on that. That gives us something to talk about. Does anybody in here still think their adjustment's just physical? That's all it does? Does anybody know there's a difference between holistic neurological chiropractic care and relief care? How many people know that? Yeah, I would certainly hope so. And if you don't know that yet, stay tuned. Because every time you show up on the court to play ball, what does showing up look like? You're coming to your appointments. You're doing your traction twice a day, 180 a day, 90 in the morning, 90 in the evening. You're doing your 4 steps in the morning and the evening. And maintenance plans are the worst. You get in your renewal care period, like next year when you're coming once a week, or maybe your plan got to the point where you're once a week, what do people do? You got better, oh, I'm going to let off the gas. I'm not going to come to classes anymore. I'm going to skip appointments. It's so frustrating. And I have to do NET around that, honestly, because I have to remove that attachment. Because sometimes I want it more for you than you want it for yourself. And I can't do the work for you. You got to do it. We got to light them up before we line them up. So you got to be willing to get lit up here and not be a victim anymore. That starts with the journaling. That starts with the NET. But more importantly, that started the first day that you got adjusted in here. And we looked at that film and we scanned you. That's when it started. So how to prevent these neurological disorders from getting worse is get that cerebral spinal fluid up there. Keep getting this back. It's never going to be perfect, guys. But when Nate tells you to shift something, you got to shift it. Occasionally, Dr. Williams has a bourbon. Okay? When Nate tells me not to have a bourbon, I don't have it. When Nate tells me, Doc, you need more, and Nate's not going to tell you to go kill somebody. That's not Nate. Okay? Might be your friend Nate, but it's not innate. Okay? Or when Nate says, you need to drink a beet juice right now. This is going on with your body. I do it. I follow that. Don't work out today, doc. That's what Nate will tell me. You need to meditate in the steam room today. So your protocol for what works for you, I'm going to demand you do the 49 breaths twice a day. I'm going to demand you do the journaling. But sometimes you might need a little bit more. There might be something you need. And establishing where these triggers are, writing them down and writing where you feel them, allows you to breathe into that area and start to shift that. And I could talk to you all night about how much cortisol and general adaptation syndrome, which has been around since the 1950s, Dr. Hans Selye talked about it, the impact of cortisol on the stomach, the adrenals, and the liver. And what that creates to create dysfunction and sends you and creates dysfunction in the hypopituitary axis, the communication between your hypothalamus, your pituitary gland, your adrenal glands, your liver, and your stomach, and how the dysfunction there causes your body to be in such a state of inflammation that it's only a matter of time before it drops into disease. So that's why I wanted to have this conversation tonight, because everybody in here is subluxated. 99.9% of everybody out there is subluxated. And we got to get the message out, because so many of them aren't getting to the root cause of it. They're not doing anything about their cerebral spinal fluid. They're not doing anything about the adrenal malfunction in their body. And innate can't work on a system that's broken or subluxated. So after we get the neurology right, that's why we recommend subluxation support. But you have to take it like we tell you guys. Oh, I'm a vegan, doc. I eat the happy hens and I eat the food and it's organic and all that. Me too. But you're 70% less nutrient dense, your food is, than it was 50 years ago, guys. It's being eradicated by Monsanto's. It's being sprayed with all sorts of crap. Oh, it says organic. Yeah, it also says USDA. You can urinate on them. It's like the Food and Death Administration. They're in bed with the pharmaceutical companies. I'm not saying to slit your wrist right now. What I am saying to do is, just because you're eating organic, one, your neurology has to be able to assimilate that food to prevent these neurological disorders that started when you were a baby. And your body's got to be able to process your subconscious emotional stress. Oh, I pray and meditate 10 times a day. Today's transformation is tomorrow's ego trip. I see it every day. The people that just, man, they're walking on, I mean, you would thought they were second coming of Jesus. I mean, they're just like this. Oh, here's the water, Peter. I mean, they literally think like that's the way they are. And those are the hardest people to help. You know what's beautiful? I had a woman, dear friend of mine, another 3-4 year patient. She texted me last night. She's going to know who she is. And I know she won't mind. I'll say your name, Elizabeth. Elizabeth Thompson. She texted me last night because we kind of had, like, Elizabeth's so sweet. She's like the girl next door. Beautiful woman. And you look at her and you're like, how can you be that age? Wow. Inside and out, just beautiful. Dr. Tanya and I love her to pieces. I mean, she's been a part of this practice forever. Used to do events with us. She's a teacher, amazing lady with an amazing family. She meditates and prays. Very centered woman. I do a lot of work on myself. Elizabeth does too. Can we still get subluxated emotionally? Yeah. And she was a little resistant at first to some feedback I was giving her. She's like, well, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing that. Oh, it's not emotions, doc, it's not emotions. It's the first thing that evolved people say. It can't be emotional. It's like crazy, right? You start thinking about this. Just because you're evolved doesn't mean you're not human. That's not what it means. It does not mean you're not human. And those are the people that need to look at it even more, because they're intellectually going to know a lot about how to be in a different place and how to become transformed. And then once they do that, their ego kicks in and they start shaming, blaming, and guilting themselves when they have a setback. Like they're supposed to be perfect. They don't give themselves the grace to say, you know what? I've done a lot of work and I'm going to screw up. I'm going to mess up. I'm a Christian. I'm going to say a cuss word. I'm going to do things I shouldn't. And I'm forgiven. And whatever you believe, you are too, and you got to forgive yourself. Because that's the grief point right up here by the occiput. So many of you are walking around with emotional stuff where you tell yourself you're not good enough. You don't matter. You say that self-deprecating stuff, and you play that message every day. That's the important of the adjustment. The cracks and all that, the stuff you think about, I give a crap about that. I'm about the transformation. What gives me goosebumps is when somebody comes in, they say, Doc, you know what? For 14 years, I never talked to my dad. I just had a conversation with him yesterday, and we cried for 2 hours together. Those are the things that patients tell me when I get moved. And when I get the snarky people off the street, the walk-ins typically, and if you're a walk-in, I love you to death, by the way. But when I get those snarky people that walk in here and don't know what we're about, and they're nasty to me, and I'm like, man. And I just for a second, I'm like, we all have days like that, right? Where you're like, oh man, I need God to uplift me right now because I'm wondering why I'm doing this. And then the moment the epi-second that happens, and that's how long is it? It's not even that long. So 5 things happen where somebody's life has been changed and somebody's crying and telling me how much they just love it here, love their experience, and how much their life has been transformed. How much they're showing up differently as a father, mother, brother, sister, cousin, niece, nephew, employer, employee. That's the stuff that's uplifting. And so I told Elizabeth Thompson, I said, well, what I want you to do is just give yourself grace. I want you to give yourself grace, permission to mess up, and understand that we're all going to goof up, and you got to find the formula that works for you. Yes, I want you to do the breathing. Have to do that. Yes, I want you to journal. You have to do that. But there's going to be little things within that experience of you being really regimented about doing that in your experience and journey here that's going to reveal to you how to self-love yourself. Maybe it's going to the beach in the morning. Maybe it's taking a deep breath. Those affirmations during the day could be what you need to do. I'm creating the possibility of love. I'm creating the possibility of life. In my journey, I came from a lack mentality as a child. I came from a childhood where the power went out one Christmas and we had to go to a friend's house. So writing a check for a certain amount or doing something in business, because I wish I could be a nonprofit, but this is a business. My business is helping and transforming people. I have my service hand and I have my business hand. And when my business hand's out and I'm having to write checks or do this or do that, that used to be really emotionally hard for me. And what I found is whatever I was fearing related to money, I had to press in and do. Maybe there was something where I wanted to split something in payments. But instead Nate was saying, you know what? You don't want to split it in payments. Pay it in full right now. Pay it in full. Because then you're going to get paid in full and you're going to pay it forward. So sometimes exactly what you need by doing what you're supposed to be doing and being as compliant as possible and showing up for classes like this is going to be on the other side of that fear and that scariness of stepping over that line is going to be that transformation you've been waiting for 10 or 20 or 30 years. And it's right there. And you're too scared to reach it. And you're getting in your own way. You're getting in your own way. That's the power of the work here when you commit to it. And you own it. And that's why it's so vital that you're here every month. And at 7:30 on Monday nights, you get on those health hacks as much as you can. It's not for me. Some of you, when you can't come, you say sorry. Like I'm indifferent about it. Don't say sorry to me, right? It's so funny. People are like, sorry. Like I'm personally offended. I'm not offended. I want you to have a transformation. I'm sad for you, but I'm not offended. I don't mean that to be ugly. I'm just being honest with you. So cod liver oil is going to be a really good nutritional supplement that we can use after we get adjusted. Cod liver oil is going to be really good for the brain. Tuna fish omega, calamari oil. Notice how I talked about the subluxation of the brainstem first. Then we talked about emotions. And what's the last thing I'm talking about right now? Nutrition. Exactly. What does that tell you about the other two things? They're less or more important? More, you would think, right? Yeah, in that order. Brainstem, emotions, and emotionally dealing with stuff. And then we talk about the nutrition. Because you can take all the nutrition in the world, if the brainstem's not locked on, and you're like this every day walking into work and being triggered, there's not a transformation coming to that person. But now what's the last thing we got to do? We got to get those adrenal glands functioning. Okay? Because anybody in here, if you live in Southern California, you're going to have adrenal dysfunction. If you were born in a hospital, you're going to have adrenal dysfunction. If you were a breech birth, you're going to have adrenal dysfunction. If you were a forceps vacuum extraction, breech baby, whatever, any baby coming out of a vagina or a uterus, and last time I checked, we all did. If that's you, you're going to have adrenal dysfunction. So we got to look at that. Adrenal desiccated, Drenamin are two good products. Okay? Livoplex, AF beta food, because what did we talk about a second ago? We talked about the stomach, we talked about the liver, and we talked about digestion. Some of you are going to the bathroom one time a day, or you're skipping days, and you think that's normal. Can't tell you how many times I sit there and people think that's normal. That's emotional stress. We adjust people and we get them in a parasympathetic state at the brainstem because of the way we adjust them. And what happens to that digestive stress and that inability to go deuce? Number 2. They start going number 2 more often. It increases from 1 time a day to 3 times a day. That's normal. That's how regular you want to be. Your skipping days are going once a day. Your body's got fermentation in your gut. And you're real close to an autoimmune condition or just dysfunction like gastric reflux and bloating, which I don't want you to have that. So we got to start dealing with it. Brain function. Everybody here, cod liver oil would be awesome. Calamari oil, tuna fish omega oil would be great. Okay? Any one of those 3. Cod liver oil is the best according to my functional nutritionist. Okay? We use calamari oil for if you've had any type of car wrecks, traumatic brain injury, stuff like that. And guys, if you want to take everything, it's not going to hurt you. If you only want certain things, tell me that. If that's what you want. Doc, what's the bare minimum I need to do from a multivitamin nutritional standpoint for my brain health? Because I know that I was born and I was subluxated at birth because of birth and all these other things that have happened throughout my life. And I want to be preventative. Should you still eat right? Absolutely, guys. There's nobody on the earth that is getting all the nutrients that they need. I don't care what blogs they have. I don't care what shows they've done. I really don't care. Sometimes you guys will say, oh, he wrote this book and he went to this school. He wrote 2 books. And they said he's a gold platinum book winner and he has a bookworm award of the year. And he's got this book and it's made out of gold. And I could care less. I literally could care less. My Uncle Jim, a really smart guy, multi-gazillionaire, really successful guy. His wife and him were under care for about 2 seconds, okay? Because when I told her that a neck brace for her forward head posture this way, for her vertigo, wasn't a good idea, and it wasn't going to correct the crystals, she goes, oh, well, the neurologist from Scripps, he's an award-winning neurologist. I said, yeah, it's not going to work for your brain system. No, Cordie, he's an award-winning neurologist. People fly in all over the country to, see him. And I said, well, you've got an award-winning crushed brainstem.
Yeah.
Okay? And this brace you have on, it isn't working. Next day, they quit care. Haven't talked to him in probably 2 years. Seriously, he lives right up here on Rainbow Ridge Road in Temecula. Whatever, right? She wouldn't return my calls, and then he slowly dropped off, and then it's my fault, right? And I told him how it is. I don't try to get family members under care. I don't. Never works out, right? It's like friends too.
Yeah.
Never works out. You got to keep those lines really clean. But I always tell you these personal stories, guys. So 1, you know that I'm human. That's the first thing. And 2, you know my resolve about the principle. That's how cod liver oil, calamari oil, tuna fish omegas, adrenal desiccated, Drenamin for the adrenals, one or the other, a liver supplement, and then you could do a multivitamin. Okay? The bare minimum would be an adrenal support and a liver support. Okay? You could add in cod liver oil later on. Oh, Doc, I just signed up for care yesterday. You ain't getting nothing. Okay? Because you don't understand the principle yet. And we got to get your neurology right first. And who determines that? Oh, Doc, you promised me 10 NETs. Well, 1, I know I never promised you an amount. NET's not on your care plan. Here's the other thing. The best NET in the world is where? Right here. It's the brainstem. And I'm not going to do NET on you, right? Until you understand the principle. Oh, doc, I haven't done my traction in like 2 weeks, and I haven't done any of my breathing, and I've missed a bunch of appointments. Will you NET me? Oh, so I can be a crutch like the medical doctor, and you're not doing what you need to do to be successful, and you're not empowered to take ownership of your health? That's not a good idea. You guys see where my head's at? So I'm always about empowering you and leading you. I'm going to shut up now. Did anybody learn something tonight? Does anybody have any questions about anything? Go ahead, and I promised that I would address you, and then I totally dropped the ball on that. Do we have a mic, Bracy? Can you get a mic for me? What's that? Okay, we got to get that on lock, because otherwise I have to repeat the question. We can't hear it later on in the video. You can edit this part, but we got to do that. I told Jordan that, so if we can lock that down, that'd be really good. Okay, so go ahead, Vic.
Wasn't exactly a question, but one of the other things you were talking about skin on skin.
Yeah.
And other things that are good about the whole birthing process.
Okay.
I thought that there was something about the actual delivery, or maybe just the labor contractions for the lungs of the baby, to get the lungs developed.
Yes.
I mean, to get them going.
Yeah. You're absolutely right.
So there's
I can't remember off the top of my head, but you're totally right. And what she's referring to, what Vicky's question was, is she wanted to add that she thought during the birth process, and if I'm not expressing what you meant, correct me, but you thought during the birth process, there's also a time period between when the baby's coming out where the lungs are going to start to inflate, and that baby, it basically, as the baby's kind of coming down the birth canal, the lungs are kind of primed, so when the baby starts to depressurize with the inner cavity of mama, because there's a pressure gradient going on in here between baby and mama, as baby drops down, that pressure gradient changes. So the pressure inside the lungs change. And so that allows the baby to be primed and ready to take its first breath, because prior to that pressure gradient change happening, the baby was breathing through the umbilical cord. You guys get that? So did I answer your question? It kind of, but you wanted to address that.
Well, just to add it to one of the other.
Yeah, valid point.
Parts, if you have a C-section, I don't know, something else must have to happen.
Well, yeah, because it's changing that, right?
Right.
Totally valid point. Vicky's totally right. So these other things that maybe I didn't mention, because the other thing is I do research and then sometimes I leave my notes in the back too, right? So that
You probably do that.
So yeah. Well, no, maybe I didn't. Actually, I forgot it. No, I forget all sorts of
Yeah.
stuff. This is invaluable, guys. When you share stuff or you ask a question, we all learn stuff and I'm reminded of stuff. I don't know everything. Okay? I just know what I know, right? Know it really well. So, no, that's totally true. And any other little things that the baby's supposed to have that's created by fluid in that birth process, and if I'm leaving out some, just imagine what that's doing to the system as a whole. And now you get 60, 70, 80 years old. You're 60, 70, 80 years old, and all this stuff is happening. Billy, just keep it down just for 1 second, brother. So, do we have any other questions?
I have sort of a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
As far as the emotional, because of my event, I've had time to reconnect with my sensitivities. But
Yeah, buddy.
But growing up, I didn't have any. And most guys don't. We know when we're hungry and show the basic things. So
Yeah.
women are always so much in touch with themselves. How do, I know you gave us a basic outline of what you want us to do, but being so opposite, is there something that we could do stronger, or do you take it one-on-one basis?
Yeah, great question. Great question. So basically, Ben's just saying men are so different from women. Shocker, right? But sometimes it takes us a long time to figure that out, right? And we keep it, why can't they understand me? And why can't they just be like me, right? And we keep like knocking our head into the sofa. And they do the same thing on the other end of that, right? Probably more so than we do. Because I innately think they're more evolved in that regard. And I think if we're being honest with ourselves, like, it's amazing how innate designed us to be so different, to have different goals, right? Even if you think from just a caveman standpoint, right? The Neanderthals, and how, the guy's supposed to go out there, the males are supposed to go out there, get the food, bring it back, and, like conquer, right? And women are more nurturing. So with that nurturing side, and that loving side, and that take care of the family, I don't mean like 1950s, stuck at home, don't anybody get like, I'm not saying that women are not powerful, okay, don't go there, okay? I don't need to go into politics and stuff, right? I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that related to that, those roles are so different. So innate has allowed us to have these certain, like, just genetical gifts that we have. So what Ben was asking is, because men are such in a different place emotionally, what's something he can do knowing that he didn't really have that in childhood, right?
Right.
So the breathing's definitely going to be big, Ben. And what you're going to have to do, I recommend a book called Switch on Your Brain by Dr. Caroline Leaf. And it's got a whole 21-day detox in the back of the book, an emotional detox. If you're not a Christian, it does have a lot of biblical verses in there. But guys, even if you don't believe what I believe, you can get value in reading a verse. Just because you read a verse doesn't mean you have to believe in what the verse represents. But there's value in that. I kind of think if something's 5,000 years old and it's the number one selling book out there, we can all get a little bit of value out of it. I'm just saying. I kind of think that. Somebody knew what they were doing right there, right? I don't know. So, but in the back of the book, whether you agree with that part or not, it talks a lot about neurology, and there's a whole emotional detox process that you go through. Books like that, Ben, are going to be really valuable. And really, it's not one thing that creates that transformation. When Dr. Williams got off depression and anxiety drugs, it was a methodical approach of consistently doing the same thing every day. And then one day my reality changed because I saw my reality different. The blind spots where I failed my life and I said, I'm never going to let that happen again. I quit allowing those to take me back in the past or into the future. And when I noticed those happening, I said, you know what? I'm going to get grounded right now to what is and present with what is. And I'm going to go in faith because I know my Creator so many times has shown up for me. I know how powerful I am to create, and I know that if I create my reality, I focus and I meditate on what I want, I visualize my experience with Ben or any of you, I visualize my day, I visualize how the adjustment's going to go, I know it's going to wind up being perfectly, and it's for the greater good. If I have to fire a patient or a patient doesn't belong here, and Nate worked it out, and Nate just saved me grief. Right? Maybe you get moved at work or something happens and you don't understand it. And you start getting down on yourself. My life sucks. But then you look at all the times where you were rubbed up against something, you didn't understand it, you were scared and afraid, and somehow you got out of that situation. In 2005, I was in a situation where I didn't have a job, didn't know what I was going to do, no hope, and I was suicidal. And somewhere within that, a transformation occurred. And I got off of those medications and I got off those drugs. And I got a check for $10,000 in the mail from an aunt of mine that had died like 2 years before that. She gave $10,000 to like 20, do the math on that, to 20 or 30 cousins and nephews. She had $2 million saved up. Nobody knew it. And she doled it out to all the nieces and nephews. Yeah, powerful, right? Died at 55, my Aunt Shannon. She had a drinking problem. Nobody knew that either. Liver cirrhosis killed her. So, I read a book called The Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren. And I got on my knees and I cried and I prayed. And then things just started happening and clicking. I didn't really understand it. And then every time I would have what I considered to be a setback, I always went back to everything that was working in my life. Oh, well, I had this. I got this check for $10,000. But I don't understand if there's a God or not. Well, there's got to be something out there. And then that source, I went New Age for a long time. And I'm not here to lecture you on religion or spirituality. I'm talking about transformations and I'm talking about personal development. So whatever you believe within that time period in my life, I went New Age. I started listening to something called Abraham Hicks. Okay? And they believe in different beings and they get spoken to and all this stuff, right? And I don't agree with that for where I am spiritually. But back then, I didn't know what to believe. And I listened to it, and it changed the way I viewed my world through my lens and my perception. I know this is a long-winded answer, but it's important that I get this point across. And Abraham Hicks led me into a workshop called Essence of Being. Essence of Being led me into a workshop called Momentum. Momentum led me into a workshop called Landmark. All that was going on while I was being NET'd, while I was getting curve correction care, and while I was working on my nutrition. And one day, I just got up and I loved my life. And I would have setbacks. I still understood this. I knew I wasn't going to be perfect. I started to identify what I needed to do to get self-love. I can only get 4 or 5 hours of sleep for a couple of nights, and then I become a Marine again. I have to get like 7 hours of sleep after that. I get NET twice a week. I get adjusted 3 times a week, 4 times a week. Okay? I go to the gym. I meditate in the steam room. There's certain foods I eat, certain foods I don't eat. There's other things I do for my health, okay, like just occasionally that relax my body and relax my mind. I have a goal sheet and certain goals that I write down and things that I write down. Before I go out to do reports when I'm feeling low, I write down what I want to create in that next report. I'm creating the possibility of love. I'm creating the possibility of 5 people enrolled in a new possibility. And over time, it just shifts. Does that mean I don't have setbacks and that's perfect 100% of the time, all the time? No. But I know whenever I get off track that in order to get back on track, I have to revert to the things that got me to the place that I'm at right now. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
So really it's exploration, it's balance, absolutely, and it's just really becoming aware. So trying all these different things, taking some of my suggestions, certainly. A requirement is that you do the journal, and another requirement is that you do the 49 breaths. But then within that, you say to yourself, okay, well, that didn't work for me, but that kind of did. I felt different for 30 minutes. I felt different about my life for 30 minutes. That's a start, guys. You need to identify if it worked for 30 minutes, what happens if you do it 20 more times?
Yep.
It's going to strengthen that muscle. Does that make sense? Any other questions? Did I answer your question, Ben?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Like I said, because of my event, I've had more time off, so
Yeah.
my teachers got loose.
okay.
I had more time off, so anyways, I was able to do that. But I'm not always every day saying how am I feeling, you know. But I talk to my Lord and everything. I do my 49 twice a day actually, which helps me a lot.
So do this, buddy. Take a little notebook around with you. There's these little tiny notebooks, okay, that you can buy. They're like, I don't know, 20 cents at Staples. Buy them in a pack, probably get like 8 of them for like $5 or something. Take one of those that you can put in your front pocket. And when you feel a thought, let's say you feel your lungs or your heart starts beating or you start sweating or you notice a part on your body gets tight or you just kind of get like pissed off, write that down. What was it? Okay, I'm at Staples. The guy took too long at the cash register. And then he said some weird comment to me. I got a stain on my shirt. See, that's one of mine, right? Got a stain on my shirt, spilled coffee all over me, and I got to go speak in front of people. Great. This is going to be awesome, right? And I have to shift that. Write that down and write the feeling. Well, I feel it in my stomach. Feel it in my stomach right now. I feel my stomach getting tight, and it makes me feel inadequate. I feel like if I have that stain on my shirt, I'm just, like, people are going to think I'm a total idiot and like I'm not successful. Totally untrue, but that we're not here to judge the feeling. We're here to just identify it in the moment. We can shift it later.
Because when you were adjusting me, I was noticing that you'd say that my liver or something was going on. I'm like, wow, I never connected all those dots. I know it is, but I never really just started to think about that. You know, so I'm just trying to get a more daily thing. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's start with a small notebook
Yeah.
and start with that. Do it for a week, and then let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Cool?
Yep.
Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you so much, guys. If I went a little bit over, I'm sorry. Sometimes that happens when I don't have a timer out here. I didn't have my phone. God bless you guys. Hope you learned something. Grab food, any food you want. Just save me a couple of bites of chicken. And God bless you. Have a great evening, okay?
But the Lord